The HOA president called the cops on me for painting my own front door. Big mistake. She had no idea I was the former state assistant attorney general who used to prosecute nonprofit and HOA fraud for a living. There I was, 7:03 on a Sunday morning, drop cloth taped down, paint roller in hand, jazz playing low on the porch speaker. The sky was just turning that pale pink over Maple Ridge Estates, and I was halfway through the second coat of deep blue. Technically, seaside indigo, according to the can, when the siren started. Whoop, whoop. Two patrol SUVs rolled slowly into the cul-de-sac, tires crunching on the asphalt like someone chewing ice. They stopped right in front of my driveway. I put my roller back in the tray and watched as two officers stepped out, hands resting casually near their holsters. Behind them, HOA President Karen Whitfield stood next to her pristine silver Lexus, arms folded, haircut sharp enough to slice glass, designer sunglasses on even though the sun was barely up. She looked like a realtor and a drill sergeant had merged into one very angry woman. What she didn't know was that for the last 2 months, I had been quietly collecting documents, screenshots, and statements about her management. Her little stunt that morning, that was the last piece I needed. What would you do if someone weaponized the police against you over a paint color? Drop your state below. I'll tell you how bad your HOA laws really are compared to ours. Let me back up. My name is Daniel Reyes, and 3 years ago, I thought I was done with courtroom drama. I'd spent 19 years as an assistant attorney general, specializing in nonprofit oversight, charities, school boards, HOAs, all the places petty people go to play tyrant with other people's money. I'd seen it all: treasurers skimming dues, presidents handing contracts to cousins, emergency assessments that mysteriously funded vacations. But then my life took a hard left. My mom had a stroke. One day, she was the woman who texted me blurry photos of her cat and asked how to reshare the Facebooks. The next, she was in a rehab facility, learning how to walk with a cane. It wasn't safe for her to live alone anymore. So I retired at 47, sold my condo in the city, and moved mom and my teenage son, Leo, into Maple Ridge Estates, a quiet, well-managed community. Tree-lined streets, a nice playground, community pool, manicured lawns. The brochure looked like a stock photo titled "Diversity for Marketing Purposes." Leo's autistic. He likes routine and he loves lights. Christmas lights, LED strips, the little solar lanterns that change color. They calm him. Mom needed a single-story house and a grab bar in the shower. I needed peace. What I got was Karen. Karen Whitfield had been HOA president for 5 years. If you picture a woman who irons her yoga pants and keeps a label maker in her car, you're close. Her hobby was curb appeal, which in Karen speak meant control everything everyone else does forever. The first conflict started small. All I did was install a simple handrail by the front steps for my mom. Sturdy, powder-coated metal, nicer than anything the builder had provided. Next day, bright orange violation notice taped to the door. Unapproved modification to exterior, fine $100. I emailed the management company with scans of the city permits, plus a short note explaining that the rail was for my disabled mother, and that under state and federal law, HOAs must make reasonable accommodations. An hour later, I got a reply. All exterior changes must first be approved by the Architectural Review Committee. The rail must be removed pending review. Signature: Karen Whitfield, President, Maple Ridge HOA. Fun fact, I'd helped write the guidance memo our state sent HOAs about exactly this. I politely responded, attaching the ADA and fair housing citations. Her reply came back 3 words long. Rules are rules. That was my first real red flag. Not the fine, the phrase. When someone clings to rules are rules in the face of law, reason, and disability rights, they're either ignorant or they're hiding something. Turned out, with Karen, it was both. The next target was Leo's lights. He'd strung a soft row of color-changing LEDs along the inside of his bedroom window. They didn't even face the street directly. You could just see a gentle glow at night, 2 days later, prohibited decorative lighting, nuisance, fine $150. The notice claimed they were blinking and disruptive to community tranquility. They didn't blink. I know that because I'd specifically set them not to blink for his sensory comfort. I went to the next HOA board meeting, thinking maybe I could clear this up in person. There were supposed to be 5 board members. There were 2, Karen and a guy named Doug, who looked like he sold overpriced mulch and used the word alpha unironically. "Where's the rest of the board?" I asked, sitting beside Mom, who was leaning heavily on her cane. Karen smiled with all teeth, no warmth. "We didn't have enough volunteers this year. The board is operating under emergency provisions." Emergency provisions. Translation, I get to do whatever I want as long as no one reads the bylaws. Mom nudged me under the table. She knows that look I get when I smell a case. "Could I see the minutes from the last few annual meetings?" I asked evenly. Karen's smile twitched. "The management company keeps all records. Requests must be made in writing and will be processed within 90 days. 90 days. Our state law requires HOAs to produce records within 10 business days of a written request. I knew that because I used to prosecute them for ignoring that law. That night, after putting Mom to bed and checking on Leo, lights quietly scrolling through colors while he read his comics, I opened my laptop and started a folder called Maple Ridge Evidence. My first find was almost boring. Those are the dangerous ones. I pulled the HOA's public corporate filings from the Secretary of State's website. The annual reports were sparse. The tax ID matched, the addresses matched, but there was one problem. They hadn't filed a required financial disclosure in 2 years. I checked the county property tax portal next. The HOA owned a small parcel for the playground and pool. Taxes were overdue. Not much, just enough for a lien warning. Then I dug into my neighbors' stories. Mrs. Patel, 3 houses down, had been fined for improper religious display because of a small Diwali lantern set up on her porch. The Smith family at the corner, fined for excessive toys in yard because their twins left chalk drawings on the driveway. Meanwhile, Karen's best friend Brittany had 3 illegal short-term rentals going, complete with loud bachelor parties every other weekend. No fines, no warnings. Pattern: targeted enforcement. But what made my ears really perk up was the landscaping contract. Every HOA sends an annual budget and a monthly breakdown with dues invoices. I pulled them from our email archive and laid them out. 3 years ago, landscaping and grounds was $24,000 a year. Last year, $67,000. In a neighborhood where the most intensive landscaping task was mowing 63 nearly identical lawns and trimming 2 circles of shrubs by the entrance sign. I Googled the vendor. Greenstone Premier Outdoor Solutions, LLC. The address? A UPS store mailbox. The registered agent? One Douglas A. Pierce. Board member Doug. Well, well. Here's the thing about petty tyrants. They think small power equals big immunity. Karen controlled the architectural approvals. Doug ran the landscaping. They packed the violation committee with their friends. They'd slowly pushed out anyone who asked questions by drowning them in fines and threats of liens. Classic HOA capture. It would have stayed that way too if Karen hadn't made one fatal mistake involving the police. The front door was my line in the sand. Our original builder-grade door looked like soggy cardboard. Mom's stroke left her a little unsteady, so I decided to replace it with a sturdier, energy-efficient door and painted that deep blue she loved. I submitted the official architectural request form. Yes, I played by the book, attached a mock-up, and dropped it into the HOA box a month before. Heard nothing. Under our bylaws, if they don't respond within 30 days, the request is deemed approved. I knew this. I also knew Karen had forgotten to tell a lot of people that. So on that Sunday morning, I put on my old college hoodie, taped off the trim, and started painting. At 7:10 a.m., Karen's Lexus rolled by slowly. She slowed to a stop, lowered her window, and glared. "You do not have approval for that color." "Morning, Karen," I said, keeping my tone light.
The request was submitted 36 days ago. Per bylaw section 7.4, that counts as approval. Her nostrils flared. We are revising the color palette. You were supposed to wait. Show me the new approved palette, I replied, calmly. The board hasn't voted on it yet. That's not how any of this works, I said, dipping my roller again. She stared at me like I'd kicked her dog. Then she drove off, phone already at her ear. 15 minutes later, the sirens arrived. The officers were professional, if uncomfortable. Sir, we got a call about a disturbance and possible vandalism, one said, glancing at my half-painted door. Vandalism of my own door? I asked, gently. From the sidewalk, Karen called out, he's refusing to comply with community standards and becoming aggressive. I'm the HOA president. I'm responsible if this lowers property values. Aggressive? I was holding a paint roller and a coffee mug that said, World's Tiredest Dad. Am I being detained, officer? I asked, keeping my voice even. Old habits die hard. No, sir, he said. We just need to document the complaint. I smiled. Great. Then let's document accurately. I pulled my phone out and started recording. Openly. Legally. My name is Daniel Reyes. This is my home. I am painting my front door after submitting a written request more than 30 days ago as required. The HOA president has called the police because she disagrees with the color. The younger officer blinked twice, trying not to laugh. The older one sighed. Ma'am, he called over to Karen, this seems like a civil matter between you and your HOA. You don't understand, Karen snapped. He has a history of violating rules. He's causing unrest. He threatened board members. That was new. My eyebrows went up. Officer, I'd like to formally state that allegation is false and that I'm happy to provide all my emails with the board to you and, if necessary, to my attorney. I didn't say which attorney. In my contacts list, I had 3 who owed me favors and 1 who'd named his dog after me. The officers wrapped it up as fast as they could. No arrest, no citation, just an incident report and 2 very annoyed cops. But Karen? She just escalated from petty annoyance to documented false police report territory. Game on.
That afternoon, I requested by certified mail copies of all board meeting minutes from the last 3 years, all architectural committee minutes, all contracts over $5,000, all enforcement and fine logs. Under our state law, they had 10 business days. They ignored it. So I sent a second letter, this time ceasing the management company, the HOA's registered agent, and, purely as a courtesy, the Consumer Protection Division of the AG's office, where I still knew most of the staff by first name. Funny thing, 3 days later, a very flustered manager, not Karen, emailed me a scrambled PDF dump of documents. And that's when their whole scheme started to unravel. The minutes were copy-pasted templates with generic phrases and the same 3 names present. Karen, Doug, and Brittany. No homeowner comments, no votes recorded, no discussion of contracts. The landscaping contract had been approved in a special emergency meeting held by email, something both the bylaws and state law explicitly forbade. Worse, the architectural committee didn't exist. On paper, sure. In reality, every decision was stamped and signed by Karen alone, often with a timestamp of 2:13 a.m. or 3:47 a.m. There were fines issued to exactly 27 households. 22 of those had last names that weren't, let's say, traditionally Anglo-Saxon. Selective enforcement plus disability accommodation refusals plus bogus process equaled my professional bat signal. I wasn't a judge, I wasn't in office anymore, but I still knew how to build a case. Karen predictably doubled down. First, I got a thick envelope from a law firm called Barton and Ames Real Estate Counsel. Cease and desist. According to them, I was defaming the HOA by questioning its finances, engaging in harassing behavior by requesting records, and obligated to remove the handrail, the door paint, and Leo's lights within 14 days or face accelerated legal action, including foreclosure. I laughed so hard, Mom came out of her room to see if I was choking. This is adorable, I told her, flipping pages. They've cited exactly 0 cases and 1 statute that doesn't apply to HOAs at all. "What are you going to do?" she asked. Exactly what I taught those people at the AG's office to do. Document everything, then file it. Next, Karen launched a PR campaign. Anonymous flyers appeared on doors. "Certain residents are trying to destroy our community with lawsuits and frivolous complaints. Stand with your HOA." She created a closed Facebook group, Maple Ridge Proud, and didn't invite anyone she considered problems. Leo showed me screenshots from kids at school whose parents were in the group. Posts about keeping standards high, people who move here and then try to change everything, respecting American traditions. Always vague, always coded. I had seen this movie before. The turning point came, weirdly enough, at the grocery store. It was a Wednesday night. I was in sweatpants, grabbing frozen lasagna because some days that's who I am now. I turned into the canned goods aisle and nearly collided with Karen. Her cart bumped mine. I automatically said sorry and moved aside. She looked me up and down like I was something she'd scraped off her shoe. "You're making a mistake," she said low and venomous. "This community will vote you out if you keep stirring up trouble." I stared at her for a moment, then glanced pointedly at the camera display on the ceiling. "Karen, I'm buying tomato sauce. The only thing I'm stirring is pasta." She stepped closer. "You think your little record requests scare me? I've run this neighborhood for 5 years. People trust me. They're afraid of people like you, always accusing, always playing victim." My jaw tightened. "People like me? People who move in and think they're above the rules. If you don't like how we do things here, you can leave." "You're right," I said quietly. "We probably have very different ideas of what we means." I walked away. Didn't raise my voice. Didn't threaten. Didn't even say what I wanted to say about the ADA and fair housing law right then. 3 days later, a deputy called me. "Mr. Reyes, we received the report that you cornered Miss Whitfield at the grocery store and threatened her." I closed my eyes for a second. "Of course," I replied. "Officer, I did speak with Miss Whitfield briefly. I'll be happy to come down, give a statement, and request the store's camera footage so we all know exactly what did and didn't happen." There was a pause. We hadn't gotten to the footage part yet, sir." "I recommend you do," I said pleasantly. "It'll save everyone some paperwork." They did. The footage showed 2 carts, a short conversation, nobody raising their hands or their voices. The report went nowhere. The pattern, however, the false police reports, the disability-related harassment, and the financial irregularities was becoming very, very clear. So I packaged it. I spent a week turning our dining room into a war room. Mom sorted violation letters into neat piles. Leo helped by labeling accordion folders. Fines and notices, board minutes, fake, contracts, discrimination, police involvement. I drafted 3 complaints to the state AG's Consumer Protection Division, focusing on financial mismanagement, record denial, and illegal collection threats, to HUD and our State Civil Rights Commission, outlining disability discrimination, Mom's Rail, Leo's Lights, and selective enforcement patterns, to the State Bar, detailing Barton and Ames' frivolous legal threats and apparent failure to advise their client about disability and fair housing law. You don't need to be a former assistant AG to do this, by the way. You just need patience, a scanner, and the ability to follow instructions on government websites. Within a month, I got 3 very interesting phone calls. One from an investigator at the AG's office who said, "Dan, is that our Dan? Oh, this is gonna be fun." One from a HUD intake officer requesting more details, and one from Barton and Ames politely withdrawing representation of the Maple Ridge HOA effective immediately. Karen was suddenly lawyerless, and then the residents found out why. It started with Mrs. Patel. The AG's investigator interviewed her about the improper religious display fine. She mentioned it, gently, to a friend. The friend mentioned it to the Smiths. Pretty soon, my phone was buzzing with messages. "Hey, I heard you're doing something about the HOA. Can I show you some letters we got? Is it legal for them to threaten foreclosure over trash cans?" We organized a meeting. Not an HOA meeting. Those were tightly controlled. Just a neighborhood get-together at the park under the pretense of a potluck. 32 families showed up. They brought stories and printed emails. We brought cookies and a big legal pad. We heard about fines for too many kids' bikes on porches, fines for non-neutral holiday decorations, fines for improper accent colors on doors when the colors were identical to ones Karen's friends had, threatening letters that misquoted state foreclosure laws, and crucially, we heard about seniors on fixed incomes who had quietly signed payment plans with the HOA's collections officer, who turned out to be Doug, paying cash at his office instead of through the management company, cash that never showed up on any ledger. We formed a residents committee on the spot, not some rogue militia, an actual by-the-book recall movement using the very procedures the bylaws outlined and Karen had hoped no one would ever read. We gathered signatures to call a special meeting for the purpose of removing and replacing the board. Karen responded the way bullies always do when someone stands up, by trying to crush harder. She declared our recall petition invalid, claimed signatures were obtained under duress, and slapped 10 of the most vocal residents with new fines for organizing unauthorized gatherings. She also tried one more time to use law enforcement as a hammer, which brings us back to my front door and those sirens. The incident report from that morning went into my already thick file. So did the audio from her yelling aggressive across the street while I calmly painted. The AG's office requested everything. So did HUD. So did the bar. By the time Karen realized how far this had gone, it was too late. The management company, smelling liability, quietly cooperated with state investigators. They handed over bank statements, board emails, and an internal memo where a staffer had written, "We have concerns about President Whitfield's directives. Please advise." Maple Ridge wasn't just a cranky HOA anymore. It was a case. And then came the night of the special meeting. It felt less like a neighborhood meeting and more like a town hall in a political scandal. We rented the community center. Under the bylaws, once you have signatures from 20% of homeowners, the board must call a special meeting. So we did it ourselves, noticed it properly, and invited a neutral parliamentarian from a local mediation center to oversee things. 94 households. Over half the community showed up. The air buzzed with low conversations. People clutched folders, phones, and coffee cups. A few news vans parked discreetly outside. Apparently, HOA gone wild makes good local TV. Karen walked in late, chin high, with Doug trailing behind like a nervous bulldog. "This meeting is not authorized," she announced. "Any votes taken tonight will be invalid." The parliamentarian, a calm woman in her 60s with horn-rimmed glasses, cleared her throat. "Actually, per Article 9, Section 3 of your bylaws, this meeting is properly noticed and valid. I've reviewed the petition and your governing documents." The murmur in the crowd shifted. You could feel the momentum changing. Homeowners took turns at the microphone. Mrs. Patel described her Diwali fine. The Smiths talked about their kids being singled out. A retired vet in the back talked about being written up for a slightly faded flag, while Karen's friend flew a 10-foot banner for her husband's lawn care company. Then they called me up. "Mr. Reyes, you requested time to present," the parliamentarian said. I walked up with a slim binder. Not a stack, not a mountain, just enough. "Good evening," I said. "Most of you know me as the guy with the blue door and the kid who loves lights. Before I retired, I spent nearly 2 decades prosecuting cases involving nonprofits and HOAs." Head snapped up. Karen visibly flinched. "In the last few months, I've provided documentation to the State Attorney General, HUD, and the Bar Association regarding some serious concerns here at Maple Ridge. Tonight, I'm going to summarize a few highlights." I projected 3 things onto the screen. A year-by-year chart of landscaping expenses skyrocketing while the scope of work stayed the same. The corporate registration of Greenstone showing Doug as owner. A redacted AG letter acknowledging an open investigation into potential financial mismanagement and statutory violations by the Maple Ridge HOA board. You could hear a leaf fall on the carpet. This is not about paint. It's not about holiday lights. It's about power and money and the way some people here have used both to bully and threaten their neighbors, including seniors and families with disabilities. Karen tried to interrupt. "He's exaggerating. He's manipulating." The parliamentarian held up a hand. "You will have a chance to respond, Miss Whitfield." I finished with one more slide. Excerpts from our state statute requiring HOAs to provide reasonable accommodations and banning retaliation for exercising legal rights. On the bottom, I had added a simple line. Your house may be in an HOA, but your rights don't stop at the gate. When I stepped down, I didn't feel triumphant. I just felt done. The vote to remove the entire board required a simple majority of those present. We got nearly 80%. The aftermath moved fast. Without Karen controlling the narrative, the management company turned over even more documents. The AG's office froze certain HOA accounts pending the investigation. A court appointed a temporary receiver to oversee operations. Doug's landscaping company turned out to be a shell. He'd pocketed tens of thousands of dollars in emergency payments. Karen had quietly waived fines for her allies while using violations as a weapon against people who question her power. Barn and Ames got a stern letter from the bar. From what I heard, they chose ethics training and a public reprimand over a drawn-out fight. Karen eventually signed the settlement with the AG. She was barred from serving on any HOA board in the state for 10 years, had to repay a chunk of misused funds, and agreed not to contact certain residents directly. HUD wrung a nice consent decree out of them about disability accommodations and anti-discrimination training. Our new board, made up of people who had once been fined for garden gnomes and slightly tall grass, did a full audit. They refunded bogus fines as credits on dues, they opened meetings to everyone, posted minutes online, and created a reasonable written policy on decorations that started with, if it's not hurting anyone or blocking the sidewalk, it's probably fine. Mom's handrail, officially approved and featured in a newsletter about accessibility. Leo's lights, declared explicitly allowed as therapeutic lighting. Karen moved out 6 months later. Rumor has it she tried to join another HOA board in the next town over. Their management company quietly Googled her first and said, no thanks. As for me, I didn't go back to the AG's office, but I did start something new. I created a small nonprofit, Rights at Home. We put plain language guides online explaining what HOAs can and can't do. We help people draft records requests, understand their state laws, and recognize the difference between rules and rights. Law students help, retirees help. Mom proofreads. Leo designs the logos and color schemes. Lots of blue, of course. Here's what I want you to remember. Your HOA can tell you when trash day is. It does not get to override disability law. It does not get to invent fines out of thin air. It does not get to call the cops on you just because you painted a door or hung a flag or strung some lights. If someone like Karen is running your neighborhood like their private kingdom, document everything. Read your bylaws. Learn your state law. Talk to your neighbors. Petty tyrants thrive on silence and isolation. They fall fast when people start comparing notes. Drop your HOA horror story in the comments. And if this fired you up, stick around, because the next tale I'm going to tell involves a condo board president, 3 security cameras, and a mailroom inspection that blew up spectacularly in court.